Okay, so we've got another example here. This is the shipping example. And when I say shipping, I'm referring to shipping packages, not shipping characters in fan fiction, like people who write stories imagining what would it be like if, Kirk and Spock got into a relationship or something like that. Not that kind of shipping. It's short for relationship, from what I gather. If you have no clue what I'm talking about, but uh, so anyway, uh, we're going to talk about shipping. Uh, Here we go. So as I mentioned, there are two crucial factors to make use of polymorphism. You have to have virtual functions and you have to pass the parameters by reference so they don't get copied into smaller classes. It is then possible for the base class to declare a virtual function and provide no definition at all. This is the thing that's like truly wacky and mind bending, at least for me. Maybe you aren't that excited about this. So you can define a function, a virtual function in your base class, and in the base class, it can do nothing. It can just be like a placeholder, like, hey, there's going to be a function, but I'm not going to tell you what it does. So here is what that looks like. It's virtual again. It is a float. We have a shipping cost function that takes in a float. And for right now, we're just going to set it equal to 0 and then put a semicolon. So basically, we're telling the computer we have this generic class for a shipping company, and we will have a function to calculate the shipping cost, but I'm not going to tell you what that is yet. The reason I'm not going to tell you what it is because I haven't told you which shipping company we're using, and each shipping company will have its own method for how it charges rates on packages. So we have our first company here. I'm just going to call it VQT, which is short for very quick transport. It's going to pull from the public side of the base class or parent class shipping company. So VQT is a subclass of shipping company. It is a specific instance of a shipping company. We're going to have a thing here where they take the weight. It returns a float. It gives the shipping cost. You put in a weight, and what it'll do is it'll say it's $3 plus $1.50 times the weight. Presumably, this is in pounds. Maybe it's in ounces. I mean, who knows? We have another one called NatFast, which is National Fast. It is also a subclass of shipping company. It also has a shipping cost function. It calculates it differently. It does just 2 times the weight. That's it, flat rate. Then we've got this class here called Government Post, which is in no way supposed to be a riff on the US Postal Service. I promise you, any similarities that these shipping companies have to like actual shipping companies is purely coincidental, and any infringement is unintentional and the product of a limited imagination. But anyway, so what do we do? So what the government post does, I almost said postal service. That's not what this is. If the weight's less than 2, it's just a flat rate of 4. If the weight is between 2 and 4, it's going to cost you 8. If the weight is between 4 and 6, it's going to cost you 11. Otherwise, they're also doing $2 times the weight. So these are the different subclasses, and they each have a shipping cost function. They have their own shipping cost function. And so we didn't define shipping cost up here. We just said, hey, bro, be on the lookout. Shipping cost is coming. Be ready. The computer's like, okay. So there's like, okay, so if you get this, you're going to use this function. Capiche? He's like, yeah, bro, I'm with you. And it's like, okay, if you get this one, you're going to use this function. You got me? It's like, oh, yeah, I feel you, bro. And then you're like, okay, and if it's this one, you're going to use this function instead. Right on? It's like, okay. It's like 3 different functions, but they all have the same name. It's like, yeah, man. Okay. Now, in addition to being virtual, you do also have to have passing by reference. So down here is passing by reference. We're going to have shipping company ampersand. This is the return type. It returns a company. The ampersand passes by reference. And in this function, we are going to select a company. It doesn't take any parameters. It's just going to ask, we're going to say, we're going to make an integer option. We're going to ask the user which shipping company they're going to use. If they pick the first one, we're going to return a new instance of VQT shipping company. Otherwise, we're going to return a new instance of NatFast. And then otherwise, we're going to return a new instance of Government Post. So here we're also using pointers and passing by reference. It's like it's all coming together. So we're using pointers to create new objects of each of these subclasses. So then in the main program, we're going to say, hey, bro, what's the weight? And they type in the weight. And then we call the shipping company function, passing by reference. We're going to, or I'm sorry, the select company function, which is going to return some reference to a shipping company. And then down here, we will call shipping cost once and only once for the weight. And depending on which company was chosen in the select company function, it will create on the heap a new company object that will either be VQT, Government Post, or NatFast. So let's look at this here. So you run this, and you know what this does should be kind of straightforward. I mean, it should make a certain amount of intuitive sense. Let's say it's a 5-pound package. I'm going to do NatFast number 2. It'll cost $10 to ship. Boom, there you go. So I've pretty much already said all of this. So that's basically just the text version of all the stuff I just said. But anyway, there you go.